How did you almost die?
Experience 1. Got lost in the Bolivian rainforest for 3 days after consuming tea made from angel trumpets. Experience 2. In the fall of '91, I was in Hawaii and dove into this blowhole in Hanauma Bay. That's not me in the video, but it's the blowhole. My buddies were doing it, and it was no problem for them. The problem for me was that I was a lot bigger than them, so my lats got stuck as I was face down in the hole. The concept is you time the waves and dive in just as the water recedes and the flow pulls you through. Well, I got stuck and had to wiggle my way down, ripping up the skin on my lats and ribs. So, I finally get down and I have to swim like a mofo, but it's too late, the next flow is coming in. I'm at the edge, almost there, so I have to grab onto the edge with both hands like a kidnapping victim holds the doorframe so as not to be abducted. The wave cycle is not very long, but when you're doing something new and panicking, it feels like an eternity. I've heard they have closed off this portion of the bay. I know I don't need to do that again. Experience 3. Exploring tidal cliffs, accidentally slipped into the water. Went in sideways and narrowly missed hitting my head. Just barely clawed my way out of the rough tidal zone. It was way over my head and was so choppy I was being slammed against the rock. Please be careful around tidal cliff zones. Experience 4. Caught an incredibly rare fungus that attacked my lungs and would have attacked my other internal organs. Took 2 years to diagnose because it's so rare. Only patient my respirologist has ever seen with it. Dropped to almost 80 pounds. I could literally feel myself slowly dying. Experience 5. My mom stopped her car on the tracks when a train was coming. Thankfully, with all the screaming of the kids, she snapped out of whatever she was doing and drove off of it. Experience 6. Went on a high-elevation alpine hike on Mt. Rainier with an out-of-town friend. At around 10,000 feet, we decided it was time to head back down the mountain. About 5 minutes into the descent, I was in an uncontrolled glissade across a snow field. Even though I knew better, after I was unable to slow myself, I put my feet down. That's when my crampons bit into the snow and stopped me, sending all of the force into my legs. I heard an unsettling pop and felt excruciating pain. As soon as I stopped, I looked down and saw that the heel of my left boot was where the toe should have been. I had severely broken my leg and I was at least a 3-hour hike down with sunlight and warmth declining. We were not equipped to be there after dark. Within a couple of minutes, I could feel my extremities beginning to tingle. Was going into shock. Fortunately, I had some glucose gel packs which I began to suck on. And that seemed to keep the shock at bay. Which was a good thing because the radiating pain was quite enough. Our cell phones weren't working well, but another stroke of luck was that I had put a GMRS radio in the bottom of my pack, and as such we were able to get word out on the radio that we were in trouble and needed help. Ham radio operators heard us and relayed our position and the details to the rangers. The National Park Service couldn't get a helicopter that was willing to fly to that elevation so late in the day, on a Sunday in early October. So, they had to gather a party of climbing rangers to come get me. A couple of other climbers on the way up the mountain really saved me by giving up their climb and assisting me, covering me with sleeping bags and making tea while one of them went back down the mountain to meet the rangers coming up. Shock and hypothermia very likely would have done me in that night if they hadn't happened upon us and helped. It was pitch dark and freezing cold by the time the rangers arrived 4 hours later. They strapped me into a litter and had to carry me off the mountain. Unfortunately, the climbing rangers are not EMTs and do not dispense meds. So even though they were doing all of the work on the climb down, it was absolutely excruciating for me. It was almost 9 hours between the time of the accident and the time I checked into the emergency room. Experience 7. Got locked in the boot of the car for about an hour during an Australian summer. I don't remember what I did, if anything, to make my mom punish me like that. I was 8 years old. Experience 8. Car accident when I was 12. My dad was hopped up on painkillers and driving me to Little League tryouts. He fell asleep at the wheel and went head into a tree going about 40 on a country road. Broke my right femur and left arm, collapsed the lung, tore apart my left knee ligaments, and crushed my left foot. I was in ICU for a few days in a coma, and the femur break came really close to knocking the artery and sending me off to the land of the dead. What it really killed was all of my confidence and pretty much ruined my childhood. I developed a severe anxiety disorder and became a recluse. I stopped playing sports and just stayed indoors a lot. Experience 9. A few weeks ago, I was walking home from the grocery store late at night and noticed a homeless guy across the street looking a bit off. I wasn't sure if he was high or having mental issues or just entertaining himself. He started to cross the street diagonally towards me and had one hand stuffed in his jacket. I felt a bit uneasy about the situation, so I phoned a family member, picked up my pace, and kept looking at him to check where he was in relation to me. When my mom picked up the phone, I spoke a bit louder than usual and told her I was walking home down ABC Street. I didn't say anything about the guy, I just asked her about her day, but I wanted to be on the line with someone just in case. After a few seconds, he turned and stopped following me. Less than 12 hours later, less than 2 blocks away, someone was stabbed and nearly killed. When I saw the face of the alleged perp on the news, it was the same guy who had been following me down the street. I was pretty unnerved the day I saw that. If I were less aware of my surroundings or less trusting of my gut, who knows if it would have been me he stabbed. Experience 10. Double murder robbery I missed because I was doing bong rips with my ride. Ruby Tuesdays, 1998, July 4th. If I'd been on time to work that day instead of 10 minutes late, I'd be dead, too. I went in the back before the cops even secured the place. Saw too much. Miss you, Joanna, and I know your little boy is happy and healthy and with your family. Experience 11. A meth overdose. I was 22, deep in the midst of addiction, and hadn't eaten for 2 weeks or drank anything for days. I was somewhat forced to shoot up. During this time, I was an addict. The person supplying me was an abusive ex. He told me if I didn't shoot up, I wasn't allowed to use anymore, so I did. He did it for me, chose how much, stuck my arm, and I immediately blanked out. I don't remember much of that day other than honestly believing it was the end and I was going to die. I quit using after that and moved away from him, and I've been clean from it since. Next month makes 8 years clean. Edit, wow. Wow, 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 wow. I love you all, and I am trying to answer all questions in regard to what happened and about this experience. Thankfully, I am off work and it's a Friday. My fiance has a friend over, and I am trying to answer all questions, serious and silly alike. And I am so grateful for all of you asking questions and giving support. I'm in tears right now. This never felt like something I would be speaking about anonymously yet openly about, or anything I would be able to help someone with, so please don't hesitate to ask questions. I will respond when I can. If it matters, I'm sitting in my garage right now reading and responding, and I do feel as if any and all prayers I've ever prayed had been answered. I'm willing to give any answer, advice, support, or suggestions that are needed. You all rock. Experience 12. For a laugh, I took a big lumpful of helium from the tank at work as I was leaving, walked out back to where my friends were waiting for me, and was going to say something in a funny helium voice when I saw them, but I apparently blacked out once I got outside, walked across the road and face planted in the dirt. Scraped my ear on a piece of rebar that was sticking out of the ground about 18 inches. Had I been a bit to the left, it would have gone straight through my head. My friend said I went into convulsions for a bit, and then I stood up confused. Experience 13. Brain tumor and brain cancer. The cytostatic treatments were horrible. I vomited more than 10 times a day and shat myself more than 10 times a day, could barely stay awake, couldn't communicate with anyone because as soon as I tried to talk I vomited, lost all my muscles, almost starved to death, got underweight, got diplopia, my spine got bent due to my position when I laid down all day, lost my eyebrows, got too thick saliva to be able to swallow it, and more. Experience 14. Not drinking enough while at sea. Burning up and feeling crap, went to sleep on my bunk and woke up 6 hours later as I was dumped into a bath full of ice. The sickbay nurse then made me drink a 5-liter jug of weak orange with some other stuff in it over an hour. Once I finished it, she gave me another to finish off. When I was found, I had a temperature of 107 degrees apparently, so was carried straight to sick bay and dumped in the bath. I didn't remember any of it apart from the shock of hitting the frozen water. A few years later, and it's winter, a friend's dog has chased a duck onto a frozen pond and fallen through the ice. I didn't hesitate and slid out onto the ice on my belly and got to within 6 feet of the dog when the ice cracked, and I went in as well. I wasn't overly worried as the ice was only about half an inch and the depth was about 20. So, I grabbed the dog, swung him up and literally threw him across the ice towards the edge, then just made my way breaking the ice until I could stand up and get to shore. Only once I got there did I realize just how cold and numb I was, but I didn't care. Home was only half a mile and I'd saved the dog. Experience 15. I was massaging a knot in my neck which was causing me a migraine. Necks are extremely fragile. I heard that you could get slapped with attempted murder charges or get homicide charges upgraded to murder charges if you choke someone because there's such a substantial risk. It's pretty damn easy to accidentally kill someone or yourself if you aren't careful. I will spare the exact details, lest I cause the 1 or 2 people who will ever even see this to become murderers. The short version is, I crushed my left carotid sinus, injuring the vagus nerve and possibly the carotid artery. Not sure about anything except that this triggered a massive vasovagal episode. My blood pressure plummeted. I couldn't move my legs, had to keep my neck bent at an angle. I was vomiting so hard and so intractably that I was vomiting blood, and I was sweating uncontrollably. Calling it sweating does not describe it. I was in a pool of sweat. I could see it actually getting out of my pores. Jetting might be dramatic, but I mean to say that there was some water pressure behind it, which I didn't think the human body could do. They couldn't get an EKG on me because I was sweating so hard. When a vasovagal episode happens, it's often due to some kind of psychological trigger. This is the same reflex that causes some people to, say, faint at the sight of blood or needles. It's all information stored in the physiology of the human body, which is why doing things like holding ice or splashing water on the neck is helpful for coping with phobia triggers that provoke fainting. It's a completely different thing when the response is provoked by an injury. A very gnarly thing. I kept coming close to passing out, my breathing getting shallower, my heart rate dropping, blood pressure getting lower. The EMTs had to shoot me up with epinephrine, and, in their own words, I was scaring the living crap out of them. They also gave me Narcan, because they didn't want to risk that I'd been poisoned or had contact with opioids. Be nice to your neck. And feel free to use this story as an excuse to deny any creep who offers you a neck rub. Experience 16. A bootleg grounded outlet. Scummy landlord didn't want to bring an old house up to code, so his maintenance guy flipped the polarity on all the outlets and tied the ground to hot. Somehow this tricks an outlet tester into showing a pass. But this makes grounded things, like guitar strings and microphones, electrically hot. I had one in each hand and clenched. I had to mummy walk into the next room till something unplugged. Walked away with burns on my palms. Experience 17. Was skiing down a mountain and some lady snowboarder stopped abruptly in front of me. I swerved to avoid her and flew towards the side of the mountain. This was at a ski resort, but for some reason, they used orange construction site nets, the ones with holes in them, and not actually sturdy fencing for this part of the mountain. My legs slid under the net, and I was stuck there, with my legs attached to heavy skis and dangling off a mountain slope. I was clinging to the ground for dear life and praying that the net could hold up my body weight, shouting for help. Everyone ignored me, and I was eventually rescued by a ski instructor coming down the slope. Experience 18. Walking down the pavement with my girlfriend holding hands when I was 18. Person driving a car and using their mobile phone mounted the pavement at 45-ish miles an hour and hit my girlfriend square on, broke my wrist and compound fracture of my right arm. threw my girl 120 feet down the road, and killed her outright. I didn't even feel the pain in my arm while I cradled her broken body, found out at autopsy that she was 4 weeks pregnant with my first child. The driver got 2 years suspended sentence, and I saw him laughing and joking with friends and family as he left court, never even apologized. Totally broke me. The survivor's guilt is horrible, and my life has been a car crash. This wording was intentional ever since. Update. Thank you all for your kind words. I'm okay, not the best I could be, but I'm dealing with it and will be for the rest of my life. It's hard, but I know I can do it, and Barbs wouldn't want me to destroy or hurt myself forever. I know that, but it's so hard sometimes. I have progressed more in the last 5 years than I could imagine, and just taking every day as it comes, one day at a time, doesn't make it easier, just a little more bearable. I just wanted to answer the question, and I've found that talking about it and telling PPL makes it a bit easier, especially when I can be sort of anonymous on Reddit, than bottling it all up as I did for years and years for it all to come out suddenly, and then I make stupid or even dangerous decisions. I don't want pity, just a bit of understanding when I say I'm having a bad day and need to be on my own. Thanks again, everyone. Your words mean a lot, and I appreciate them greatly. Second update. Wow. Just wow. Thank you for all the replies and the awards. I really don't deserve them at all. You are all amazing, and I appreciate the love that PPL has shown. Thank you. Experience 19. My dad was driving our family of 4 down a highway. It was en route to Bakersfield, California, and I remember there were trees and open fields on either side of the road. If anyone is familiar with that area, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I remember my dad was drinking a beer and had just finished one, and he asked me to pass him another one from the cooler he had in the back seat. I don't know if I was being cheeky or if I just sensed something wrong, but I didn't give him another beer. He kept yelling at me and getting more and more angry until he decided to aim the car at the center divider straight into a huge tree. I thought we were all going to die, and it was all my fault, but then at the last minute my mom pulled at the steering wheel and we just kind of fishtailed instead of hitting anything. I know it wasn't my fault, but I was fairly young at the time, maybe 8-ish, and it was just scary. Experience 20. In college when I was a freshman. Got too drunk and high at a party where I hadn't smoked in probs like 2 years. Got back to my room and passed out on the bed. Woke up to my roommate dragging me off the bed and yelling. Was not coherent. Turns out I was blue in the face, choking on my vomit. The crazy thing is he wasn't supposed to come home that night. He was supposed to stay at someone else's place, and something told him not to, and he came back. The dude saved my life, still best friends to this day. Experience 21. Got a tattoo on my leg, not my first tattoo, so I figured it would be a simple heal like the others were. Apparently not. The first couple of days were a breeze. After day 2, I couldn't stretch my calf to walk, so I had a limp, but I wasn't really concerned at this point. Day 4 rolled around, and by this point, it was a deep shade of red and burning hot, so I described what was going on to the artist and got told that it was okay, and leg tattoos usually end up like that. In hindsight, I should have gone to the DRs for it, but I trusted the artist and figured it was okay, and it's just freaking me out because it was my first legette. I still had an inkling of doubt in the artist's response, so I asked my mate to take a look and see what she reckons, and naturally, she flipped out and told me to get it checked. But I'm an idiot, so I didn't listen to her right away, but by that night, it had gone from red to dark purple with pus blisters forming, so I went to A&E. I would have died had I not gone to the hospital that night. It was my own fault because I should have gone on day 4, but it's over now. Experience 22. We're trying to buy illegal stuff in Mexico, college spring break. We asked the bellboy at our hotel, and he said to meet in the lobby at 8 p.m. Score. We get ready and head down to the lobby. We are told to get into this white Jeep. We were hesitant, they could tell. They offered us a beer, and they had a 30-pack in between the driver and passenger. Red flag. We were in college and were like, hell yeah. The next 30 minutes were them cussing us out, telling us to leave their country. All Americans do is come down and treat their country like crap, and so on and so on. At one point, my friend puts his hand on the driver's shoulder to try and calm him down. He pulls out a gun and slaps my friend's face with it. He is drunk, getting extremely angry at us, and is speeding and swerving on these narrow dirt roads outside of Cabo. It is a neighborhood, so there are cars lined up on both sides of the street, not much room for error. As we are preparing to die, I am looking at the road up ahead, trying to see if there is a good way spot to jump out and roll out of the car. Nothing. A few minutes later, felt like an eternity, the driver slams on his brakes, yells something in Spanish, and tells us to get out. We do. The driver and passenger get out and tell us to stop. We do. He is holding his gun. We tell them we just want to go back to our hotel. We are sorry for upsetting him. He laughs. He says, "Don't you guys want some party favors?" We are shocked. But we replied yes. LOL. He says $100. We don't argue. We pay him and he says, "Actually give me all the money in your wallet," and we oblige. They give us maybe $10 worth of white powder. They laugh and drive off. The car is smoking and whistling. He was driving it so hard trying to scare us. We call a taxi, go to our room, and compose ourselves for the next 30 minutes. We then go out to the club and try and score some more. College stupidity at its finest. Experience 23. I have severe asthma. When I was a child, I woke up barely able to breathe. Just a trickle of air, which didn't even allow me to speak. I shook my parents awake. Fortunately, they soon realized and called an ambulance. I finally stopped breathing and was resuscitated by my parents on the dining table. It was a terrifying experience. Fun fact, the evening before I had eaten potatoes for the first time. I was convinced it was because of that and didn't eat potatoes until I understood what asthma was. Experience 24. Not me, but my childhood friend. We were playing with my dad's tools in the garage when my friend felt something sting him. He dropped the hammer he had, and a black widow went crawling away. We both looked at each other and then the bite. On the skin in between his fingers, there are 2 pin marks where the fangs pierced him. We didn't tell anyone BC we weren't supposed to be there. Luckily, he didn't die, but in retrospect that could have turned out a whole lot worse. Fun facts about black widows from an aficionado. 1. Black widow bites are rarely deadly. In fact, most people, like your buddy, experience dry bites, which means the spider bit as a warning but didn't inject any venom. It's rare even to give antivenom for it. 2. Black widow spider bites are used to kill up to 20% of people. Well, kind of. In the 1930s, we treated bites by force-feeding alcohol and opiates with some alkaloids for good measure. Shockingly, turns out that kills people. 3. Even bites with envenomation generally require only pain control. Pregnant people, elderly people, and children should seek medical help if they have a painful widow bite, as they may be candidates for antivenom. 4. Black widows were named poorly. The females don't always eat the males, although it happens, and it is more likely to happen when underfed in captivity. With that said, many spider females will eat the males. 5. People misidentify venomous spiders pretty commonly. Bites that make nasty wounds and leave scars aren't black widow bites, as black widows have neurotoxic venom, which doesn't destroy tissue. Brown recluse bites can cause necrosis, but chances are most people you know who had a recluse bite diagnosed were misdiagnosed as well. 6. Black widows are not aggressive at all. Bites are pretty hard to get and usually take place when folks stick their hands or feet into unused dark/shady areas such as wood piles or garage shelves. 7. My personal favorite fact. The first journal publication of black widow bites that I can find is a collection of stories of men who were bitten on the penis while using outhouses in the 1920s.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.